Welcome to the Hoops Rehab Show on a Sunday night, not Friday night. I don't know why I was going to go there, but this is the Game Injury Doc and your host, Eric B. Mack. Welcome to Sunday night, guys. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. We got our 2 Game 7s in the books and ready for that second round, but we obviously gonna talk about these 2 Game 7s that were good ones, but in the fourth quarter we pretty much knew who the victor was.
Yeah, that's for sure. So as always, everybody follow us on all social media platforms, the Game Injury Doc and Eric B. Mack, as well as our YouTube page for the Hoops Rehab Show. And then we also have an Instagram page for that as well. And then if you don't catch the live show and you want to hear the recap, it's on the pod. So follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts. However you receive your podcast, we are there and we'll have it uploaded and ready to go on Monday morning. And the only thing we always ask as many questions as possible. So we love when you guys are in the chat, especially in the YouTube chat, Twitter, Instagram, wherever it is, we're here. We're willing to listen, and we want to discuss everything as well. So, we ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So, let's get into our Sunday Game 7, which was the Warriors and those Houston Rockets, which we all know if you've been watching the show for the last month. I was never a believer in the Houston Rockets, albeit they did get to a Game 7. So, mad props to them. They're a young team, got a super talented young team with some veterans mixed in, and they did really well, coming back from a 3-1 deficit. But we've known that there's only been 13 teams to come back from a 3-1 deficit. So going into a Game 7 against a veteran-loaded team like the Warriors was always going to be a hard one for them. But valiant effort, and they'll be a team to be reckoned with next year, especially with whatever goes on in free agency and the trade market.
Yeah, I think they obviously the beginning of the season, nobody would have thought the Houston Rockets would have finished with the second seed with 52 wins, and honestly, defensive juggernaut, how they really have been all year. And so definitely props to them. I did when we had the prediction show, I talked about Golden State having a pretty similar series to 2 years ago against Sacramento, where they also went on the road and won in a Game 7. Now, the 2 series were pretty different. The one 2 years ago was a little bit more high octane offense. Game 7 was the Steph Curry show. He had 50 points. It was a high scoring affair. So it was a little bit different tonight. Steph Curry obviously had his fingerprints all over the game still in the second half. He played 46 minutes. He obviously ended up with the 23 points, 22 points, right? 10 rebounds. I saw him working his ass off on defense too. And so he was definitely, again, the unsung hero, but just not in your customary, maybe 30, 40, 50 point way. He obviously hit some big shots. Often in big games, though, there is an unsung hero. And needless to say, that was our Bahamian brother from the Bahamas, Buddy Hield. Just went off, had 9 3-pointers. Obviously, most of it coming in that first half when Curry wasn't scoring much. He really carried the load for them offensively. So, it was a man. Points were tough to come by tonight, and so it was close. I think Rockets are probably shooting themselves in the foot. There's a couple bunnies that they missed late in the game and some turnovers. I think it was just a veteran team closing them out in Game 7. What did you see?
Yeah, I mean, to have like when you have a veteran team and you expect the Steph Currys of the world, obviously, to close out this Game 7, Draymond Green to kind of take over defensively like he did tonight. but to have a player like Buddy Hield, who got inserted into a lineup that was already doing pretty well. Like right, they went into game 4 and they inserted Buddy into the starting lineup, or it was in game 3. I kind of mixed up those 2 games, but immediately won those games, right? And so you looked at like Steve Kerr and you're like, well, it was interesting. They thought they had to make a change, but obviously he saw something that offensively in the beginning of the game they probably needed a little bit more kick out of shooting, and so that's why Buddy Hield was in there. And it paid dividends for him in Game 7. I mean, he had 22 at half. And I think he's only had 20 points 4 times since January, right? So to have 22 and a half, and he hasn't really had those big games this season in general with the Warriors. So that was cool to see. And then Steph only had about 3 at half. So for him to kind of take over in the second half in the fourth quarter, he looked a little tired, a little banged up. Obviously, he's dealing with the thumb. He does look a little, I wouldn't say gas, but he looks tired. Like he just looks more tired than you'd usually see out of Steph Curry, who's always running around. I think that had to do with the physicality of this series. Amen Thompson's length on him, Dylan Brooks always getting into him. So they were kind of beating him up physically. And I think he was kind of worn down this series. What'd you see with Steph Curry kind of in Game 7?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely was a bit for sure. And you kind of just got my mind working a little bit when you say that. And I'm like, damn, like if you think about the rest of the playoffs, if you map it out, you got Minnesota, which is not going to be any easier, right? Defensively, maybe OKC, Western Conference Finals, and then, either Boston or Cleveland in the finals. So he's going to have to work his ass off.
For sure.
And I know we're going to touch on it a little bit later. I just, I don't know if he'll have the gas to obviously go another month and a half, but, Curry is obviously a all-time great for a reason. And man, like his 3-pointers sometimes feel like 4-pointers. They're so big. They always come in huge moments. Like they come obviously in high volume, but I mean, I think you could have counted to just 7 games, right? 7-game series, like the likes of Amen Thompson just all over him. But he did play 46 tonight. So obviously Steve Kerr must have liked what he saw, or else he would have probably gotten maybe a few minutes more of a blow. But he probably felt I needed him out there. So we'll see going forward. That's going to be definitely interesting to see.
Yeah. We're going to preview the Minnesota Warriors series right in a few minutes, but I wanted to get into the Rockets just before we get there, because I do want to give them a little shout out, right? They were a tough team and definitely brought the physicality. I like the way they're coached, obviously, by Ime Udoka. I think he brings that physicality nature and that defensive kind of upbringing that he's always had. What do you see they need moving forward in order to take the next step?
So I
totally
expect him to see Kevin Durant. I expect him to have. I expect to see Kevin Durant in a Houston Rockets. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, because I'm on the same wavelength, because I feel like they. I mean, I would not trade Amen Thompson at all for Kevin Durant, and I don't think you necessarily need to. I think like a Jalen Green is a possibility of being in that trade. Now, I'll give you Jalen Green stats because I wanted to kind of touch on him a little bit there. He had the game 2, which he had 38 points, right? And then the rest of the series, he averaged 9.1.
Crazy.
Right. So for 6 games of the series, he was essentially non-existent. Right. So I think when you look at players that, yes, he's been by far their leading scorer on the season, I just don't know if he's the player that is going to be able to close out a series or close out a game when you need it, when it's on the line. Yes, he is young. He's 23 years old, and there's some growing pains and there's some experience that needs to be done. I just don't know if he's that player. And if I'm Phoenix, that's a young piece that you would probably want to go along with Devin Booker and just kind of retool the whole thing. You got to get rid of Bradley Beal, all that stuff there. So I definitely see that as a fit. And obviously they were looking at that during the trade deadline. So I think they will be heavily, aggressively pursuing Kevin Durant coming this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. Jalen Green, Rockets really, really needed his offense.
Yeah.
If you look at his stats, he's not a big playmaker. His stats don't jump at you with rebounds, assists, and things like that. He's obviously got length and he defends, but they really needed his offense. They got it in game 2, which they won. The other 2 games that they won, obviously, pretty much 6 of the 7 games, he was in single digits. And so, in terms of building a case for the trade market, he obviously didn't do the Rockets any favors.
Mm-hmm.
But I think so. I'm almost positive Rockets have some draft capital, so I can see. Obviously, they have to make some of the salaries work, but it's going to be a buttload of draft picks. It's going to be Jalen Green. Obviously, you're going to have to throw in someone else. Like I mentioned, you're probably going to have to get a third team. And that's what I see happening. If I were to bring out the crystal ball, I can kind of see that happening. But if it doesn't, hopefully just another year of obviously continuity. They're going to be amazing defensively again. I think Sengun really, really struggled tonight. I'm going to be too worried about him. I think he's going to be a stud.
No. Yeah.
So I think they'll kind of work through him a little bit more. You got Van Vliet. He's on the books. I believe it's if honestly, don't quote me. I believe it's a team option of $44 million next year. So, he had some big games and he's a veteran and they may have to just suck it up and deal with it. But man, I don't know. Other than that, and I know we're gonna talk a little bit about them when we go back to school. But I mean, what do you? I mean, you think probably Green and some picks?
Yeah, I think Green and some picks will be more than enough. You can throw in a Tari Easton or anything like that. Somebody in that range, but or Cam Whitmore, right? I mean, I think there's some players that you can throw in on that Houston Rockets team. I mean, they still have Reed Shepherd, who was their number 1 pick from this past year, right? He didn't play at all, right? So I think if you can start to integrate him into this team this year, or even use him, he could be a trade piece too as well, because Phoenix has obviously been looking for a point guard or a guard that can kind of do both, score and bring up the ball. So you got tons of players that can get this trade done without having to give up the whole core of your team. Especially for Kevin Durant at this age. But I see a lineup of Van Vliet, Thompson, Kevin Durant, and then you got Dylan Brooks and Sengun as their starting lineup. And to me, that is a lineup that competes. And then you obviously still have some players off the bench that are young and athletic and can play defense and can get it done. So I think if you can come into the next season with that type of lineup, more than okay. There'll be a pretty solid team.
Yeah, I think they're regardless of what happens, defense is their identity. So I think they're going to have another good season. It just depends on, who they face in the playoffs and matchups, of course, and if they pick up that superstar like Durant or whoever else is out there. So good season though for sure.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into, now that the Warriors won, let's get into their next round matchup with those Minnesota Timberwolves, which should be the Lakers, but that's by far not even close. We can't even think about that. But we got a 6-7 matchup, and the last time was, Eric, there was a 6-7 matchup there?
Yeah, I mentioned it on Twitter. So the second time in 3 years that the West is featuring a 6-7 matchup in the second round, and the Warriors were part of both series. So should be a hell of a series for sure.
Yeah. So what are your first thoughts when you see that matchup on paper and just kind of what we seen in the first round with those two teams?
So first thing I think of is Warriors just came off a tough ass 7-game series. And I see Minnesota really giving it to them on Tuesday. So they're going to be already a little bit behind the 8 ball. And obviously game 2, which I know we're not there yet, will be really big. And so out of respect to Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, I'm not going to say Wolves in 5, but I do think Minnesota will take care of business in 6. A couple of things stand out. I just think they're going to impose their will, very similar to the Lakers series. I think Warriors are kind of smaller, just like the Lakers. A couple of advantages the Warriors do have, though, is so they are going to play more guys. So I think they'll be a little fresher than the Lakers. And it's funny, we haven't even mentioned Jimmy Butler's name at all night, but they have a guy like Jimmy Butler who is really, really the foundation, and of course Draymond Green of that defense. So Warriors do defend. They are a better defensive team than the Lakers, and so I think those two things are going to have the Warriors. And I think they're going to be in a lot of these games. I just feel that Minnesota's length and then just their experience as well from last year, obviously star power with Edwards. I think they ultimately finish him off in 6. So what are your thoughts?
So you got Minnesota in 6, in all due respect to Steph Curry.
Yes, and I want to say 5 so bad, but I'm gonna boop, boop, boop,
okay.
Boop. But don't be surprised.
So, we talked about a certain stat on our show for a couple weeks.
Absolutely.
About seeding and how important seeding was in the playoffs. And then with this second round matchup, that's almost thrown out the window because we got a 6-7, right? But there's only been how many teams, Eric? 2 teams that have won an NBA championship as a 4+ seed, right? So 4 and higher. So there's been the Rockets at a 6 and Boston at a 4. I believe the Warriors are now in position to be the 3rd team to win an NBA championship as that high of a seed.
Wow.
Now, if we're just breaking down this next series, they led the season series 3-1, right? They lost the first game. I'm not really counting that because it was kind of early on in the season there. And it's obviously before Jimmy Butler, right? So
I think all 4 games were before.
All 4 games were before Jimmy Butler, and they still won 3-1, right? So I'm not too overly concerned about Minnesota. I do think they pose some physicality issues, right? The way Houston did. And I think, we think about this series with the Rockets and Warriors. It became a game 7, yes. But the Warriors were up 3-1. And they left their foot off the gas in game 5. They got lackadaisical and said they would just win in game 6. And then the NBA nowadays, when you do that, it's just not it's not the NBA that you could do that anymore, right? Like there's these young guys that are going to come at you every single night. And so I think they learned a valuable lesson that when they have a team down on the ropes, they put the gas on the pedal. Okay. And I think Draymond led like a players kind of meeting after that game 6 loss, which pretty much set the fire in them for game 7. And I think having that veteran leadership is going to prove very well for them in this next series against the Timberwolves. So I do agree with you on game 1, where it's just going to be a little difficult because they're going to be tired because they had to go 7 games in this series. But I got the Warriors in 6 at home. Right. So I think I do give Minnesota some games in this series, but I think they win it in 6 overall in that series. And then when I think about their path getting to the finals, on the other side, we got OKC and Denver. And that's a series that we're going to get into after. But overall, I think that they now are in position to have tighter hopes. Like, because they got past that first round matchup, and I think they just have the most veteran-led team right now and have that championship experience from before. What do you say?
Wow. Definitely going on a limb. And if you're right, that means Draymond will be right, because during the All-Star break, he guaranteed that the Warriors would win the championship. And that would be unprecedented. 7 seed, a play-in team. I don't know. I mean, I will give them a puncher's chance against anyone, no doubt. But a little earlier in the show, I went through the gauntlet of defenses they're going to have to face, and I think that'll ultimately do them in. I think they did mess around. Obviously, they really should have probably won this series in 5 or 6, but they did go 7, and I think that's going to hurt them. And I think it's going to be a throwaway game in game 1, as opposed to maybe finishing and handling business Wednesday or Friday and having about 4 or 5 days off between series. And so to me, that'll be one of the differences. But it would shock me if they won the championship for sure, but it wouldn't like crazy shock me if they won the series against Minnesota, just because, again, their experience and obviously their will to win. But I predict Ant Edwards took out last year Kevin Durant and then the Joker. This year he's going to take out LeBron and then Steph Curry. But I'm here for it. No disrespect to Houston, but I would have not wanted to see Houston against Minnesota. That wouldn't have been that fun in my eyes. But and I'm sure Adam Silver feels the same way. But
now they've got superstars in the series. You got Ant, you got Steph, you got Jimmy. So it's a loaded series. And you're right though. Anthony Edwards took out LeBron and Luka in the first round, right? And you saw him. You saw him talking a bunch of trash after this game and in his hotel room, talking about like, what do you mean? If I took out the 2 best players in the league, I'm good. Like we can get past anybody. So
of course,
he's definitely got that young brass attitude and swagger and confidence, which you love to see. But Steph Curry is going to put those boys nighty-night in the series. So I'm just saying,
we'll see.
I'm going to go on a limb. And I think right now that they are in position.
It's go time on Tuesday again. If Warriors could pull off game 1, then I might have to jump ship. But I think game 1 will be a boat race, and meaning Minnesota will win by a large margin.
Yeah, I do feel though like and game 1s are so important, right? So like if you don't get game 1, it just puts you in such a negative.
Got to get game 2,
right? I mean, it just becomes so utterly important, and I feel like game 1, and no matter what they go into that series, they got to know that, and even if they're tired.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's get into our other game 7, which was yesterday. The Nuggets and the Clippers, and that game was a snooze fest because the Denver Nuggets blew out the Clippers, even though Steve Ballmer flew out 120 people from the wall.
All the Clipper fans out
flew
there
them out for free. Had their signs up cheering. Oh, Clippers, Clippers, Clippers. The Clippers clipped, man. And like Westbrook said, when he went on that, he dunked, got a personal tee right there, and looked at all the Clippers bench and said, "You chose them. Everybody else besides me. You didn't choose me. This is what you want. You traded me." So I think that was a statement game by the Nuggets as well. And it was interesting. Did you see what the Nuggets said after the game? Like they wouldn't be in this position if Mike Malone was still there. That was really telltale. It was like basically saying that like if things didn't transpire the way they did, there's no way we're going to get past this series. So that was I mean, that was surprising to me because that was a tail sign of what the dysfunction was going there, whether it was all Mike Malone and Calvin Booth together. There's just like so much tension there, or there was just so much tension between Mike Malone and his team, they must have lost his he must have lost his ability to use his voice because they're tuning him out. So that was interesting to see. I don't know if you caught that yesterday.
I actually didn't catch it, but when the final horn went off, I thought to myself, David Adelman just got himself a permanent job, and maybe that was like part of the plan too, because we talked about him. He was a hot kind of assistant going into last offseason, and so for example, Lakers were even considering him. So I'm pretty sure they're not going to want him to leave, and so if the Memphis head coach can get a job after what he had done in that first round,
I mean, David Edelman better have locked in an extension at this point. I'm trying not to disrespect this guy because I still can't remember his name.
I know you saw that. I know you guys remember that segment from a couple weeks ago, and I still don't know his name.
I'm just saying, if he can get a head coaching job, I don't know what the inside of the teams and how he has been as assistant over these years. But if he can get swept and beat down that bad throughout that series, and get a head coaching job, David Edelman must have signed and sealed his extension there, at least for the head coaching job there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like kind of just going back to the game a bit. So when you're obviously a favorite and you're game 7 and you're a former champion, it's not a huge surprise Denver won. I think we were surprised that Denver won the series, but once it got to 7, we were kind of like on the fence on who we were picking, but I am surprised that it was a shellacking like it was. And so, I mean, obviously like most games, it was close early on. What I saw was Kawhi Leonard definitely kind of really be the only one in terms of their stars that showed up. It was very obvious that Denver wanted guys like Derek Jones, Nicholas Batum, Bogdanovich, Norman Powell, to some degree, to be the ones that beat them, and they just weren't hitting their shots. And so, for example, Clippers were up by like 5 or 6. They'd have 2, 3 wide open threes in a row. They'd miss them. So if you make those right, you get up 8, 9, 10, 11, and it's a different ball game. And so Denver got hot. They had a 11-point lead at the half. Kawhi hit a 3 to start the second half. It got down to 8. And the rest was history. Denver went on a just real big run, 3-pointers left and right. Michael Porter, and so he had a couple big shots. And so I mean, all those Clipper fans, it was pretty cool. Obviously, a cool moment for them traveling and going to the game, but I'm sure they left with their heads down because that was not a good showing at all. And man, Denver's showing the heart of a champion. They're gonna, to beat them, you're gonna have to come and play your best ball and knock them out 4 times. And so man, it was surprising, not so surprising in like the whole like Clippers, James Harden, like just bad luck bound to happen. But I don't know, man. I mean, you thought the Clippers probably would have had a chance, right, to win?
I mean, I originally picked the Clippers to get through Denver, and that was based on just I was giving more the nod to Ty Lue, get some respect there, and he did a great job just in general of coaching. I was shocked that the effort in the second half was just not there, right? They weren't able to kind of turn it on and get to that next level. I'm a little concerned with them moving forward, just like I was going into this season, right? They lost Paul George for nothing, and kind of went in with Norman Powell, and Norman Powell did turn out to have a great season. I just don't know where they go from here because their stars are just older. James Harden's getting older. Kawhi's getting older. I love the Zubac piece in the middle. I just don't know if they have the fix to bring in any young talent that will get them over the edge. And so far, Kawhi's tenure has not been as advertised for the Clippers, right? So they haven't even really come close to getting anywhere near a championship. So.
Yeah, I forgot that these two teams faced off in a game 7 in the bubble in 2020. And so Denver took that one. That was the last season or playoff game that Kawhi was actually on the floor in the last playoff game for the Clippers. So obviously their fans were just, I saw all over the place. They just asked for one run with Kawhi healthy, and it looks like that didn't even matter because they're obviously going bye-bye in the first round as well.
Yep, school's out for them, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Sneak peek.
But yeah, that brings us to our next segment, and we want to kind of preview the OKC Denver series, which is, to me, going to be, I think, probably between them, Minnesota, and Golden State, but probably the best series in the second round, just because there's so much talent and just the way OKC has been dominating the whole season. In your opinion, can Denver stop that at all, or what do you see in that series?
I don't want to disrespect Jokic.
I think we always start with I don't want to disrespect. We're basically disrespecting. So go ahead.
The Nuggets. So I'm not going to say 5 games. Does this sound familiar to you guys? Yes. But I just off the top, I like OKC and 6 in this series. Yeah. I just think it's just like it's time. It's their time to at least advance to the Western Finals, and that's kind of what I have. I mean, I think Denver is going to be a tough ass out again. Game 1 is going to be tomorrow night. Denver just played a tough 7-game series, so I see kind of like a similar outcome in Game 1. They were 2-2 on the season. Yep. And then I didn't mention it actually earlier. So Golden State and Minnesota, it's actually their very first playoff matchup ever. And that's pretty cool. These teams, if you count the Seattle Supersonics, who are now obviously the Oklahoma City Thunder, they have faced each other 4 times and it's 2-2. One notably was the Mutombo falling back with the ball, obviously beating the 1 seed while they're the 8 seed. Denver Nuggets beating Seattle. But I think Denver is going to run out of gas a bit. I think OKC's defense and just their athleticism, they have size too, so they're going to be able to bang with Joker a little bit. Yeah. And I think that along with just the depth of Oklahoma City versus the not much depth with Denver, I think it's gonna do in the Nuggets. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, OKC has been proven the whole season that they're the most dominant team in the NBA right now, and I do think they've probably learned from last season and losing in the second round and what it takes to get to that next level. But I originally picked them losing in the second round, albeit it was the Clippers. Yep. Now we step in with the Denver Nuggets, and you have a championship Denver Nuggets team, which that most of the players are still from that team. And I think Joker, like he had a good series in this the Clippers series, but I don't think it was like, you were used to seeing like some crazy stat lines, like the 35, 20, and 10, like he triple doubles every single series. And I think this series will happen. I think we'll have one of those Joker performances of a series where you just go like, damn, he's the best player in the NBA. It's going to be, to me, this is 6, 7. I mean, 7 more than likely, just based on the sheer talent. And I'm giving everything I got for OKC. This is not like a disrespect for them. I think they are the better team in this series. However, I do think that if it got down to a game 7 and you have Joker or SGA, and what we talked about the MVP conversation, I know that SGA is going to get the MVP more than likely, right? In my opinion, Joker averaged a triple-double, his best season ever by far in most of his categories. He will be the difference maker in a game 7.
I think he's going to have a big series. It's I mentioned obviously OKC does have some big guys, but they don't have like a Zubats from the Clippers who, to be honest, hats off to him because he just battled his ass off. And I think he made it really tough for the Joker. And so I think he might breathe a sigh of relief a bit, honestly, playing OKC. And so I think him personally is going to have a big game. And to be honest, too, I like Peyton Watson too. We haven't brought up his name at all, but I don't know. He reminds me like of a poor man's like Jaden McDaniels, just lanky, can hit a 3, and so I see him getting some more minutes because I do believe Denver's going to have to buy some minutes of a blow or two for some of their big guys because it's every other game now. Every other day. So there's no 2 days between games. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, right? It's just like bam, bam, bam. Travel, no travel, doesn't matter. And so I see him being a key, but that's why I'm kind of just sticking with OKC, because I think that the OKC sweeping their last opponent, Denver going, a grueling 7-game series against the Clippers, I think it's going to catch up to them around the 5 or 6 game mark. So, but hey, I'm hoping for a good series, and I'm sure it will be.
Yeah, I do give you that, though, because I think Peyton Watson, that's a good choice for a player to have an impact this series, because the only thing I question with Denver is who's going to guard SGA. Like, who's Denver's? Yes, Aaron Gordon is a great defender, like in spaces, but when OKC has Chet and Hartenstein in the lineup, right? You're not putting Murray on Chet or anything, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to put Murray on him. Braun is okay at times. He's not the best defender, but you might be able to get him on there. But I think that's their problem, right? So, like, who guards him a lot of those minutes when they need someone to be on him? And I think Peyton Watson could fill that bill a little bit for 10 to 15 minutes a game, where you're just giving him that length and size, and then you throw Gordon out there when OKC goes smaller, right? So if OKC goes smaller with Chet at the 5, then that's when you can throw Gordon on SGA a little bit more, or vice versa. Porter, right? Porter can get on him. He's a little banged up, but just throwing some different sizes at him. I just don't think that Denver has that particular lockdown defender, like a Lou Dortz, right? Like that guy, he's going to be guarding every big time player. So I do think that's going to be a tough one for them, and somebody that will probably average 40 in the series. He'll probably go off for like a solid 35, 40 point games. So
yeah, no, for sure. That's a good point, because like last series, you could put Aaron Gordon on Kawhi, because Clippers didn't really have like a true power forward. And so they could afford to put him on him. But yeah, to your point, if OKC's got Chet and obviously Hartenstein in there, they're big guys. It's going to be like, who do they put him on? So it's going to be a chess match. And again, I think that's why Peyton Watson could play some big minutes even down the stretch for sure.
Yeah, and I think Hartenstein will play more minutes this series just basically because they have Joker, right? Because Chet, Joker on Chet he'll put him in this like garbage can basically. You don't want too many minutes there because he'll pick up fouls pretty easily, I think, in that matchup. So I think you'll see Hartenstein a little bit more than we normally would in a series. But yeah, it's going to be a hell of a series. We're both kind of on the opposite fences there, but overall, best series out there, I think.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's get to our other game of the day, which is round 2 of the Pacers versus Cleveland. So, you're still saying you got Cleveland in 5? I'm gonna let you start with this one then, since you're so confident over there.
So yeah, this series did not start the way that I envisioned it at all, no doubt. And so when I say 5 games and you lose the first one at home, it's a little silly. I think now there's something that we're obviously going to transition to in a bit with something happened today, and obviously that is an injury, which again, injuries could really derail any series. And so, in my opinion, I think Cleveland needed a little bit of adversity. They've all season just been kind of floating along, first seed in the East, had some bumps and bruises, but for the most part had an amazing season, had a really, really easy matchup with Miami. And so I think that Indiana is a hell of a ball club, and they keep proving me wrong, this year and last, but until they lose 2 games, I'm going to stick with the 5. I know I'm kind of have to probably like teeter more to the 6 game mark now, but I'm just thinking that this is the adversity Cleveland needs to kind of give them a kick in the behind to saddle up and, ultimately finish off these Pacers. But what did you see today in game 1?
So before we get to game 1, I'll just go with the season series was 3-1 Pacers.
It was.
And then now that the Pacers have won game 1, that puts the percentage differently, right? So when a team wins a game one in a playoff series, they are 78, basically puts them at 78% of the time they'll win the series. So, we look at those kind of factors there. And the third factor, which is, we'll talk about it right now, basically in our Something Happened Today segment, is the news that broke before the game. Just that it was more of a serious injury for Darius Garland. He has a big toe sprain, which is concerning because anytime you're using your big toe, that's what helps you push off, right? So any step there, pushing from, just anything you do, running, being able to explode off of it, being able to step, that's going to be the issue for the Cavs moving forward. Is an injury that would probably likely put him out 2 weeks, right? And he's going to have to play through it. It's something that Austin Reeves that we found out was playing through, and he just didn't look like himself. And so the fact that he sat out game 4, right, which wasn't surprising because they were up 3-0. But the fact that he actually had to sit out game 1 is heavily concerning for me, because without Darius Garland, they are definitely not the same team, and they just need that impact from him. So if I put all those 3 factors together, and I already had Cleveland going down in the second round, albeit it would have been the Bucks if they were healthy. So I'm gonna say Indiana at this point are the favorites in the series, and I think they will win the series.
Ooh, yeah. It's looking like the sexy pick right now. As far as Darius Garland is concerned, the funny thing that makes me kind of think about things with him is Kyle Anderson of the Miami Heat. He was asked after game 4, so what has made Cleveland so much better these last game and a half? And he said, the Cleveland Cavaliers are a better basketball team without Darius Garland. I just thought that was the funniest thing.
Wait, who said that?
Kyle Anderson. He's like, Cleveland was a lot better because they didn't. There must be some kind of beef with them because he said it was
there's got to be some beef with them there.
Yeah, and so I just y'all could look it up. But literally after game 4, they asked him because he played game 3, but he missed a chunk of the game, and then obviously he missed game 4. But that being said, though, I don't think they're a better basketball team without him, and to advance in in this series, they're going to need him. But looks like he might not be around. And I know that toe injury is tough. Like you see it in football all the time with turf toe. Yep. It's not one of these things that just like a week or two it goes away. It's going to linger probably all playoffs, probably until next season. Yeah. And so that's the tough part. And so they're going to have to grind this out. I anticipate he's going to miss a couple more games, and Cleveland's going to have to pick up the slack for sure.
Yeah. There's some things like temporary things you can put in their shoe that kind of helps them, give them a little bit of support. But overall, it's always going to zap their ability to just be quicker on the court, right? Certain steps are going to hurt, right? So that's going to affect his defense. And you kind of saw that with Austin Reeves, where he's not the world's best defender anyways, Reeves, and with the toe injury, it just made it that much more difficult on defense and on the offensive end. And so I think he's going to have to struggle. Yeah, he probably tries to give it a go much earlier than he needs to. And then that begs the question is, how effective is he if he's out there, right? So is he being a detriment to the team by playing injured? So there's always that risk reward type of thing where if he comes back and has a great game, then everything's great, right? But I think that's definitely concerning that he missed a game win with that.
Yeah, there's got to be in the back of the head of the team and him. Sure, we can have him out there, but I just mentioned a second ago that they're better with him, but they're better with him at being as close to 100% as possible. Yeah. You don't want to be a detriment to your team. And hey, obviously must win situation for Cleveland, game 2, or else you could probably say good night. And so Indiana's, hey, they've had a hell of a run these last couple seasons, man.
Yeah. I was thinking about a little comparison with Tyrese Halliburton, and he reminds me of Jamal Murray in the regular season and then getting to the playoffs, where you're just does something else just like click or turn on, or he's just that type of player where in brighter lights he becomes that much more better player, right? And I think what he's doing in the playoffs so far has been, and what he did last year was just total domination in the playoffs, right? So I think we might be getting to that road where we start saying playoff Hallie or playoff Halliburton, right? It's playoff Jamal, playoff Tyrese. And I think he's stepping up in a big way for Indiana, because it is a team that we just kind of like, I don't want to say we write off, but it just, you don't think they're as good as they are until they start playing in the playoffs. And part of the reason is who's their coach.
Yeah, Rick Carlisle.
Right? Rick Carlisle. He's won an NBA championship. So we can't discount the fact that they have that pedigree, and they got some young players that are ready for the show. And they had some experience last year. Obviously got to play Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. Wasn't their time, but it will be interesting to see if they can have that rematch again with Boston.
Yeah, if I was a Pacer fan, and if I had to choose whether I'd rather have Halliburton be good in the regular season or playoffs, obviously I would choose playoffs. Yeah, first half of this season, he was just like, I'll say it, he was god awful, and so it's just we thought maybe like he was a flash in the pan, but yeah, he's been balling for sure, just doing a little bit of everything. Yeah. And Indiana, I think we like downplay them because they have had success, but I feel like every team they face, which again, you could only play who's in front of you, they've had a lot of injuries on some of their matchups, including I guess this one a little bit. But yeah, I mean, hey, if they go out and win this series, they're definitely going to shut me up. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's gonna be a hell of a series, and it's gonna go pretty deep. I know you got Cavs in 5, so a little gentleman sweep. But I think Indiana's, the experience they've had the last year, especially with the playoffs, it'll make it a deep series here, especially with still in game 1. Super important.
Okay. Absolutely.
All right. So that brings us to our last segment of the day, which would be, hold on. Oh, before we get there, we got a little comment from our man Cam.
My man? Woo!
Instead of schools out, a mountain and snow in Denver, the 5280. Let's go. So he wants a little snow edition. We don't have any snow yet. I don't know if we can get that for you, Cam. We might be able to get some effects on the screen to do that. But before we go, I'll let you get started, Eric.
Yeah, I know Cam is a big Nuggets fan, so congratulations. We'll see what the doc's grabbing there. So school is definitely out for 2 teams. We obviously knew that this was going to happen. We got 2 game 7s. So Cam, we're gonna bring the beach to the snow this time. And so who do we got first? We got the
Los Angeles Clippers, who pretty much what they would say is the Clippers clipped and school is out for them, and they will be on summer vacay. Kawhi will probably be in Maui, just chilling on the beach, not talking to anybody, probably just chilling. Same expression. James Harden gonna maybe be in Houston, because I know he used to love going to Houston, if you know what I'm saying. And then who else we got on that team?
We got Zubas, we got Ty Lue.
Oh yeah,
Jeff Van Gundy.
Oh yeah, coaches. Yep. But Clippers, hell of a season, but they did something that they're really used to, and that's losing the playoffs. So still 0 championships in their history, and that probably continues for quite some time. So sorry, Clippers.
Sorry, Clippers, and you have not made a finals either. Obviously, a pretty decent season. So you guys were 50-32, 5th seed in the West. They were 4th seed in the West a year ago, and so a small dip there. They obviously had a successful season because a lot of people picked them to be more so in the cellar. They obviously had a nice run in their first full season at their new arena. They do have some question marks coming into next season. So James Harden has a player option. So I imagine he'll exercise that. Nicholas Batum has a player option. Ben Simmons is a free agent, but sorry, had to throw him in there. So yeah,
I'm just saying. Hold on, before we even go anywhere, was Ben Simmons in this series?
He was rostered for sure.
Is Ben Simmons done in the NBA? Like, are we getting to that point where, I mean, when he finishes this contract out, it's just, I mean, is he signing for a minimum on the team? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not really sure where we're at with it.
Yeah, I think after a year or two, he's going to disappear. I mean, I think he's still young enough for maybe a team to take a flyer on a minimum veterans deal. It's crazy to think, like, man. Yeah,
he was a hell of a player. I don't know I mean, he's had some back issues, yes. So there's some back surgeries and things that have kind of zapped his potential. But his game has not been able to go to the next level. And so that's concerning there.
Somebody will take a flyer on him, I think, just because of his defensive presence and little things like that.
That's for sure.
It won't be for much.
And who's the next team with the bus picking him up? The school bus picking him up for summer vacay?
I think you had this team going out, during this series, if I'm not mistaken.
Did I not say if
I got the bus?
If the Warriors played the Rockets in the first round, the Rockets would be going on summer vacay in Cancun. And that's what happened. So all y'all Rocket players, have fun out there, but you will be watching the finals from somewhere else.
Absolutely. I would maybe go to Phoenix right now. I don't know where Kevin Durant is if he's in Phoenix. Maybe start talking in his ear a little bit, right? Let's start getting some conversations going. But no, all jokes aside, Houston, good season, as we've talked about. 52-30, second seed in the West. They were 11th seed last year, so nice job. Obviously, had a hell of a season. We already talked a little bit about what their offseason will look like, but notable free agents would be Steven Adams. So that'll be a big question mark. He had obviously a hell of a series against the Warriors, and and then that'll be a future Laker. So that'll be nice. Something to look at. And yes, it is a team option for Van Vliet, $44 million. So that's a high price tag. Obviously, maybe he's involved in like a Kevin Durant trade, because remember we have to kind of match salaries, and so that could be part of it too.
That makes a little sense to get Phoenix him. Some Booker, maybe a Jalen Green or something like that, kind of turns that team into a different type of team. That could make a little sense there.
Makes sense. Absolutely, but
yeah,
school's out for those two ball clubs.
Yep, great effort by those Houston Rockets. It was a hell of a series, but your time is not now. Nope. So great show tonight, Eric. It looks like we will probably be on Tuesday night. I think we're going to try to go every other day now that we're in round 2. So we look forward to kind of talk to you guys about the game and kind of previewing the next game. And if anything happens on the injury front, I'll be your guy on that. So from the Hoops Rehab team, do you have any last comments there?
No, we'll talk to you guys Tuesday. At that point, all 4 game 1s will be done, and we'll break it down, and we'll be at it then. Thank you guys for listening in, and always appreciate the support.
All right, Hoops Rehab team is out. Peace out.
Peace.